plane, soul plane, and angels. And we find that the angels have ability to appear into our third density frequency, and we don't understand the process. And we find that other beings are able to appear in our density. And very often we find that people have been able to project their consciousness into another density and come back with information. And I found out that many of the UFOs that are visiting this planet do not come from other planets. They come from the contracting universe. And I was able to communicate with them through dowsing. And this is just a very simple tool here, a very simple dowsing tool. And these are called divining rods. And the divining rods work on the principle of kinesiology. If you are telling the truth, then the divining rods will give you a yes answer. If you are not telling the truth, they will give you a no answer. And through the use of the divining rods, I was able to communicate for many people on different levels and different densities and find out which density they are coming from. And very often, many of the people from other densities from the contracting universe appear on this planet in what is known as a plasma ship. Very often people are confused because they do see craft in the air, and they describe them as either discs or cigar shake, or they look like a hot dog, various ways of describing these things. And after I questioned them, I found out that this unidentified flying object that they saw looked very metallic. And any flying saucer that looks metallic does not come from another world. They are manufactured right here on this planet, and they do not have the capability of moving interstellar. The plasma ships that do come from the contracting universe have the ability to travel instantly to any part of the universe because time is not a factor and distance is not a factor. And we find out that many of the people, or the individuals that are coming from the inner densities, are very curious about our planet and the consciousness shift that we are making at this particular time, and they're watching us. And they told me that when Earth makes its shift in consciousness, that everybody shifts at some level. And they did ask me if I would like to make a cultural exchange, and I agreed to going on a cultural exchange. And they told me to meet them at a certain place. And in this case, I had to travel down into Mexico, where the meeting was to take place. And at the time, they told me that they would be able to assist me in making the cultural exchange. Was like about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they told me to be there in this location in Mexico at 9 o'clock. So I packed all my things and I left. I did not have time to turn the phone off or make arrangements for my mail or a newspaper or anything. I just left. And when I did get to the location where I was to meet, there was a small craft that I was able to go aboard. And I don't remember too much between that time and when I arrived on a much larger ship. And this larger ship, the name of it is called Orlan. And Orlan is such a large ship that it has a capacity of holding 2 million people on it. And it is a cylindrical type ship. And most of the time, the ship Orlan resides within the rings of Saturn. And I do have a picture that I got off the internet taken by NASA, where you see this thing in the rings of Saturn, and they don't know what it is. But I do know that this is a photograph of the Great Ship Orlon. They took me into the Great Ship Orlon, and I had cognizant dissonance. In other words, when I went into the ship, I looked, but I could not see. The ship was so massive, and all I could see is vast space within the ship. And my tutor that went with me, he began to explain the different parts of the ship and the different levels of the ship. And as he described them, I began to see things. I began to see rooms, and I began to see craft, and I saw places where they grew things. And I was led down a corridor into the meeting room. And I don't know how big the meeting room is. I have no idea. And there was probably thousands of individuals in this room, but I only had the ability to view the few that were right in front of me. There was maybe 5 or 6 in front of me. And they wanted me to tell them how I felt. They weren't interested in my concept. They weren't interested in what I thought or my evaluation. They wanted to know what I felt. So for the next probably 5 days, I moved in and out of consciousness. And they were also able to coach me into some of the emotions that were not to the surface. So during this time, I was very comfortable. There was no fear, and I was just very happy to be able to interact with the individuals in this vast room. And after that, I was returned to my vehicle, which was in Mexico, and I drove back to where I live in Baghdad. And it was as if I had never been gone. I did subscribe to the newspaper. I hadn't stopped the newspaper, but during the 5 days when I was gone, no newspaper was delivered. There was no messages on my answering machine. And when I went to the post office, the agent there in the post office, they saw me and they picked up my mail and they said, "Here, Gerald, here's your mail. We've been saving it for you." Those are the things that I can't understand, is why there was a big vacuum there. So after the trip to the Great Ship Orlon and the cultural exchange, I came to be aware of the principal operator of this craft. And they don't have names, so I arbitrarily just gave her the name of Mother Divine. And Mother Divine and the Great Ship Orlon do not visit the planet Earth very often. Once in a while, I think all the time I've known Mother Divine, maybe I've seen her ship 3 or 4 times. And as a result of this trip to Orlon, I was able to meet another individual who had a ship of his own. And this individual I arbitrarily named Lothar. And Lothar is a maintenance engineer that lives on the planet of Neptune. And in Neptune, it being a watery planet, the best way I can describe it is they have a vast complex of marinas. And any flying saucer, any of these plasma ships that need to be tuned up for our atmosphere come to Neptune, and Lothar is able to regulate the ship, and he is also able to act as a pilot. He'll take these pilots down to the Earth, and so that people from other places are able to view the Earth. And we do have the Arcturians that come around planet Earth, and the Arcturian people are constantly monitoring the magnetic intensity of the planet, and we'll find that the magnetic frequency of the planet varies, just like ocean currents. And so anybody from a foreign density is able to navigate the magnetic currents of this planet using the maps that are made by the Arcturians. And as an example, in the region of the constellation of Lyra, coming from the contracting universe, I just arbitrarily named these people Lyrans. They came to this planet to observe, and Lothar